just to introduce who Freshworks are. If you haven't heard of us, we were formerly known as Fresh Desk, and we started in 2010. Since then, we've added a myriad of different platforms, solutions, and applications to our portfolio, including Fresh Service, which is an ITSM product, Fresh Sales, which is a CRM, Fresh Marketer, which is a marketing automation platform. And as you can see from my screen, we've added lots of different solutions, and we certainly do love the word fresh. Since then, the business has grown enormously. We have offices all around the world and a huge presence across Europe. Now, I would like to introduce Jonathan Whan. Jonathan, hello.
Hey, Sunny, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you so much for joining us. To start off, would you like to introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are?
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. Really excited to be on today's session. So I'm Jonathan Whan, Associate Director of IT for W20 Group. So I work for a global US company, and I've worked there for sort of 6.5 years, maybe a little over now. Got about 12 years experience in the IT field. And really, I've worked from the bottom all the way up to where I am now. And yeah, like I said, been at W20 Group for many years. And that's really where my career took off, starting on the support side and working my way through to IT leadership.
Amazing, thank you. Now, can you just give us a little bit more information on who W20 are, what you guys do?
Yeah, so we are predominantly a PR and marketing firm. We now class ourselves as a fully integrated agency. So I worked for agencies a majority of my life, and W20 is one of those agencies, predominantly in the healthcare sector. We do now branch out and do creative work, adverts, TV, and sort of post-production stuff. But our real main focus is in the pharmaceutical market. So working for some of the big pharmaceutical brands on all their communications, marketing, and sort of drug approvals.
Amazing, thank you. Now, getting into your use case and your solution, can you tell us a little bit about what your ITSM use case is? What do you use your platform for?
Yep. So really, the reason why we got Freshworks in and to the product Fresh Service was the inability to scale on our legacy platform. So our current use case at the moment, obviously, is the ticketing system. So from an IT perspective, that's used, heavily, as you would expect. But we didn't just stop there. We branched out to different business units, and multiple business units that I think we'll probably touch on in a little bit. But our use case is really the ticketing system and the service request side, using the contracts and a few more of the Fresh Service functions there.
Amazing. And thinking back to before you ever engaged with Freshworks and Fresh Service, when did you realize you needed a new solution? What were the issues and problems you were facing?
Yeah, so our previous platform was Managed Engine Service Desk Plus. What sort of triggered us to look elsewhere was when we hit about 1,000 employees. So we realized that we are growing as a company, we're scaling up, and we're moving fast. Our solution and our system at the time really didn't fulfill us with confidence that was going to grow with us. So we adopted change, and we looked and demoed various different products. But that was the real decider for us. How can we go from 1,000+ employees and fully support them the best we possibly can in the most efficient way? And after going through all the demos, Fresh Service, Freshworks was the right product for us. But the old platform just didn't have the functionality that Fresh Service has got. We wasn't really adopting SLAs then. So it was a little bit clunky in the system that we were using. We didn't have the service request section of it. It really was just a ticketing system. And if you wanted to change anything on there, you really had to know the system to be able to adopt that change. It wasn't sort of really user friendly. It was a little bit clunky. So we moved forward, and that was really the trigger that made us look elsewhere.
Amazing. And I know you guys have actually rebranded your solution internally. Can you tell me a little bit about that and how you're sort of marketing the platform when you launched?
Yeah, exactly. So we were able to rebrand the Fresh Service, our portal and our back-end system, and we came up with some names and we put that to the public. We put that to our end users internally, and we actually ran a poll. And they decided that they wanted to brand it and call it "Make It Work" with the I and the T in capitals, just to get a little IT spin on there. So we put our logo in there. We've done some creative adoption there, and really branded it to make it feel like it wasn't just sort of Fresh Service, but there was that real nice collaboration between Fresh Service running the back end, but on the front end, it's W2Os. And that really helped with user adoption and bringing people on board, because we've found in the past, if it's branded to the company, people are more likely to go to that front portal and use it. So driving that portal adoption for us by rebranding it was key.
And just a bit of a side question from that. When you first launched, did you have immediate adoption, or did you have certain departments or people in different regions that were a bit resistant to the change and just preferred using the old solution?
It was pretty seamless. I mean, we always had some users that would just, don't like to adopt change, but unfortunately change is always going to happen and people have to see that as a positive rather than a negative. But we saw a good adoption early on. We made the cut over from the old system to the new system pretty rapidly. The only thing that we wanted to drive people towards was really that front end portal. So on the legacy system, they could, email support at W20Group.com. That would generate a ticket and they wouldn't need to go to any front end portal. Because we've switched that and we've switched the way we want people to contact us, we still were getting a lot of emails in, but we were surprised at how many people actually did adopt the front end portal and really used the knowledge-based systems and the information that they have in front of them, where they wouldn't have that if they just sent an email.
Amazing. Now, this isn't just your department using this, is it? Can you tell me about how other departments are using it in more of a enterprise service management use case?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously it started with the IT, but we didn't want to stop there. We wanted this to be a solution for the company, not just for one department. So we contacted the benefits team, our facilities team, our financial systems, HR, legal, talent acquisition, even as far as our subscriptions team and our earned media team. We thought, how can these folks really use this system? We contacted them, done our requirements gathering, and found that actually some of these teams are now using the ticketing side of the system. Some of these teams are using the service request side of the system, where we've got workflows built on the back end. It goes to certain approvals, and also we're finding legal and our subscription teams, for example, we're using the contract management system on Fresh Service. So we've got all these different departments using various different areas of the platform. And that was our real goal. We wanted something that could add value to the company and not just one department.
Amazing. That's great. Now, bringing the conversation to the here and now. Obviously, we're all impacted by COVID-19 some way. How has your business been impacted, and how have you been ensuring service continuity?
Yeah, so the way we see ourselves is as a cloud-first company. Really, from day one, we've minimized the amount of on-site servers. Really, it's more just telco racks, to be honest, in our offices. So we wanted to make sure that we had as much stuff in the cloud as possible. So we know that as long as our end users have internet connection, they can access any of our systems at any time of the day. When COVID hit, this was really seamless for us, and went surprisingly well. When we shut the office down in March, that one evening, we literally had, and I think globally at that time, we were probably about 1,300 people, 1,400 people, go from 18 offices to 1,400 offices with a flick of a switch, with no interruption. And that was because we were so focused on making sure we have cloud-based applications, obviously making sure they're secure. So not much change in that aspect. We were able to do that very nicely. And now we're even got to the point where Freshservice is so important to us with the service requests, with everyone being remote. And we've also just had an article in Wired magazine where we partnered with Amazon Business on deploying equipment out to users. So we're really using these systems to add value back to our employees.
That's amazing. Do you think you could share a copy of the, is there an online version that we could share around in our follow-up of the Wired magazine article?
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'll make sure.
We'll send that around. That would be really cool. Now, looking at metrics and data, what kind of metrics and data are you looking at in order to measure success? What are you looking at to find out what's working and what isn't?
Yeah, absolutely. So the analytics side is obviously very important to us, especially at leadership level. Knowing how our agents are performing is absolutely key. So the main areas we focus on at the moment are sort of weekly resolved tickets in the last 30 days. So we're looking at the charts and the graphs there per agent. That allows us to have sort of direct contact with the agents. We can, someone's falling behind and then their stats are not looking as they should. We can reach out to them and find out what's going on. We look at the total tickets group by close date. And one of the most important ones, I feel, is the customer feedback. So what are we getting from our end users and our customers? How can we improve our service? Are things going great? Are things not so good? So where can we apply constructive criticism to our agents if we need to? We're also focused on the service desk load analysis. So that's various metrics that give us the load of our agents. Are our agents over capacity? Do we need to staff correctly? Is there a consistent trend of the amount of volume coming in? And do we need more agents on board in the company? We're recruiting in the US at the moment, and I'm currently looking for a service desk team lead in the UK. So we use all these metrics to aid performance, staffing, and customer success and feedback.
If anyone's looking for a job, reach out to Jonathan. Okay, that's amazing. Now, looking forward to 2021, what do you have next on your roadmap?
Yep, so some things that get us excited. So we have Microsoft Teams across the agency, and Freshservice have the implementation with Microsoft Teams. And I know you guys are currently at beta V2 of sort of the chat function in there where we can recall tickets. But what it's going to allow us is our agents and our customers are able to have a chat in Teams, and we're going to be able to flip that into a service request or a ticket. But also you can bring in data around any existing tickets, which is a really nice to have. So we're super excited for that to be launched. The virtual agent that Freshservice have to offer, we recently went through a demo on that with you guys, and that was super cool. So we're really looking at applying that in the very near future. And something that we're definitely going to do, which I think really tops it right now for us, is the orchestration side that Freshservice has to offer. We're so excited to set up with you various softwares and applications where minimal intervention from an agent or an IT support technician, the ability to go into our portal, request, I don't know, Adobe Creative Cloud or Adobe Acrobat Pro as an example, go through a workflow for manager approval, manager approves it, to have that application then go and install directly on that end user's machine with no IT intervention. That is a real big deal for us. It allows our agents, it frees up more time for our agents to go and focus on other things. So automation and the orchestration bit is really what's getting us excited right now.
Amazing. That looks like an exciting 2021. Well, Jonathan, I think that's sort of the end of our time in our 15 minutes. I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining me, and thank you to SDI for putting this on. I don't think we do have time for questions, but yeah, just want to say, Jonathan, have a great Christmas, and everybody listening, have a fantastic Christmas.
Andrew, thanks very much for having me.
Thanks, both of you. So I actually had a presentation prepared which fits quite well with today's theme. So that is next gen tech and how to prepare for it for service desks and often IT in general. And one type of content that I create includes survey-based reports, which allows me to get a pretty good insight into the service desk industry about different topics. And these topics range from quite current, potentially basic topics, to more advanced and potentially futuristic topics. And despite the topic, I always like to inject a bit of realism into my work. And I'd like to think that this presentation is a good example of this. And hopefully by the end, you'll agree. So just a quick rundown of some of the main points from this session. We'll see a lot of SDI insight data from various reports, and all of our insight reports are freely available on the SDI website. So the first thing we'll look at is areas of IT that IT service professionals are looking to develop in the next year. And then we'll take a look at what tools service desks use to support the business, as well as what we could expect to see happen in the industry over the next 12 months and beyond. I'll then talk about some technologies of varying complexities which can be combined to provide a zero-touch approach to service and can improve the customer experience. And these include things like process automation, sophisticated chatbots, and omni-channel service, and what I think this could mean for the future of the service desk. But of course, as fantastic as all this technology is, we need to be realistic and acknowledge that not every organization will be able to implement every technology. So I'm going to give you some tips around what you can do now to set yourself up for the future. But before that, I want to talk about the pillars of excellent service. Everything I say today can be related back to one of these pillars. And what I mean by that is that the most things that you do around your service should be to benefit your customers, whether it's directly or indirectly. Firstly, accessibility of service. Can customers reach the support team easily in a way that suits them at any time that suits them? So that includes support and communication channels, everything from telephony to live chat to self-service to chatbots and so on. And do they need to leave their preferred platform to contact the service desk? So the main points to think about here are integration of tools and processes, 24/7 support, those sorts of things. Next, there's accuracy. So this is where a strong knowledge base and knowledge sharing culture comes into it. Not only is this accuracy of articles for self-help, but it's also knowledge among support staff and accuracy of ticket resolution. Speed is obviously a big factor and can play an important role in shaping the customer experience. And while you shouldn't sacrifice quality for speed, in some cases there can be significant costs to the business in terms of revenue and/or efficiency if issues go unresolved for a significant period of time. So the speed of service is an important aspect to consider as well. Finally, usability. Quite simply, how easy is your service to use? How easy are your alternative communication channels? Not only can this have an impact on the customer experience, but it can also have a negative effect on adoption rates, leading to poor return on investment. By understanding the pillars of exceptional service, your support service can begin to work towards becoming more customer-centric and developing your service. And there are many different things which will be a priority for different service desks, which we'll look at in the next slide, but improving your quality of service to your customers should be at the forefront of your development. When asked what areas of service management they were looking to develop, the vast majority of service desk professionals specified that their attention is focused on automation. And this is understandable, as we've seen across several SDI reports. Improving the efficiency and quality of IT services using automation has fast become a significant focus for organizations. I'll be talking about process automation in a bit more detail later. Interestingly, the next main focus for respondents revolves around service desk staff's motivation and development. Investing time in staff is integral to ensure effective IT support and a team which can evolve alongside technology. Typically, SDI Insight data shows that the service desk are likely to focus more on customer experience than employee experience. So it's surprising to see this trend turned on its head here, and something which will be interesting to monitor. The next two factors are centered around customer experience, the more commonly chosen of the two being around monitoring CX by moving towards using XLAs or experience level agreements, and the second being employing a customer-centric approach to service management. Now, it may seem disheartening to see that these factors relating to customer experience are only resonating with around 50% of respondents. But it's important to note that most, if not all, of the above factors relate to improving the customer experience in some way. As I mentioned, ultimately, any focus the service desk may have should consider the impact on the customer as well as IT services. And it's important to involve key business stakeholders when looking to develop a strategy or project, including key customers, to understand how IT can support the business and continually improve the customer experience. Something which a lot of organizations are having to contend with now is supporting a remote workforce. In fact, 66% of service desks are now supporting more customers remotely than they were pre-COVID. The technologies a service desk has access to can affect how effectively they're able to support a remote workforce. And according to this data, the most common tool service desks have is email, followed closely by remote support. Telephony, which 88% of respondents have, and email are consistently among the most commonly used communication channels across SCI Insight. And telephony in particular has been a service desk staple for over 30 years. So it's interesting to see remote support surpass telephony in uptake, though it is understandable given the challenges organizations have faced this year. In the previous slide, we saw that the majority of service desks were looking to focus on process automation. And here we can see that 43% of respondents are currently utilizing this asset. And we can also see that 14% are utilizing channel integrations. And again, I'll be speaking about this a bit later, but further analysis of the data shows that the majority of respondents who have channel integrations also have automated processes, which suggests that these respondents are able to derive more value from channel integrations. The most common thing that respondents expect to see over the next 12 months is greater use of live chat or chatbots as support channels. As we saw earlier, 37% and 14% of service desks offer live chat and chatbots as a support channel respectively. Now, both of these channels can be beneficial for the service desk, though their functions do differ. And I will note that we often ask what tool service desks use, and chatbots has increased significantly since this time last year. And perhaps this is due to the current climate of needing to access support remotely, or perhaps this was a natural progression. The proportion of respondents who expect a greater use of self-service or self-help has also fallen significantly since 2017. However, there are several considerations when analysing this statistic, like the increase in the number of options in this version of the report. Furthermore, it's interesting to note that self-service and self-help have been major topics in the industry for several years, and industry reports like this are showing that this is still the case. And while many service desks are still struggling with self-service for one reason or another, the perseverance of the industry in trying to improve their portal and sharing what they've learned from their self-service journey signifies that service desks recognize the impact that self-service is having and will continue to have on the industry. And it will be interesting to see if topics like AI, advanced automation, and ESM will be met with similar enthusiasm and persistence in the coming years. Other significant changes since 2017 include the fact that the proportion of respondents who expect to see more ITSM tools and processes being used in non-IT business functions has more than doubled. This category is considered to be an aspect of shared services or enterprise service management, which shows that service desk professionals expect more organizations to adopt a shared services way of working. And other SDI research shows that we're already seeing increasing proportions of uptake in ESM within the industry. This signifies that many support professionals are aware of what's going on outside their own service desk, and that's an incredibly positive observation to point out. The final significant change since 2017 can be seen in the proportion of respondents who expect to see a greater use of AI and machine learning technologies, which has more than doubled in 2 years. Other SDI data has shown that there is a trend showing that more and more organizations are adopting AI and machine learning. However, it's a slow and steady transition, and it'll be interesting to see if this is a gradual change or whether it speeds up over time. I want to dig a bit deeper into that self-service statistic. So let's take a look to the future. We asked service desk professionals how far they agreed that we'd use more self-help or self-service facilities in the future. And the results showed that while the vast majority agreed with this statement, for the second year in a row, or the second time in a row, there was a small increase in the proportion of those who disagreed. Now, perhaps this is due to the availability of other support channels like chatbots and virtual agents. In fact, we asked whether service desk professionals thought we would be using more of these technologies in the future, and 65% agreed with the statement. And as we saw, most service desk professionals expect to see a rise in the use of live chat and chatbot technologies, and SDI research is showing signs that this is the case. However, there is a lot of work that needs to be done behind the scenes to ensure that your chatbot can work efficiently and be a great tool that customers want to use. For example, ensuring your processes are refined and ready for automation. ITSM best practices detail a number of ways in which IT support functions should perform, the most common and pertinent to the service desk being incident management and problem management and request fulfillment. However, the issues arise when these processes are treated as separate entities, when actually, to achieve their maximum efficiency and value, complementing processes should be integrated and entwined so that they become almost like one fluid process. Ensuring that your processes aren't wasteful and don't contain unnecessary steps can lead to significant improvements in the efficiency, productivity, and consistency of IT support and the service it provides. Using some of the process refining techniques used in agile and lean methodologies, you may be able to identify aspects of a process that could be automated and therefore delivering the same value faster at a reduced cost. You may want to take this opportunity to review processes from multiple support teams, such as HR, finance, or facilities. And in doing so, you may be able to highlight similarities between the different support teams' processes. And this presents the opportunity to explore shared services or enterprise service management. ESM offers service desks the opportunity to extend their value across a business by attempting to share best practices and tools from different support teams to boost performance, create service consistency, and promote a common language. It also creates transparency across an organization, and it can raise the profile of the service desk while increasing the efficiency and communication of each support team. Refining processes and blending them to create a seamless exchange of inputs and outputs relevant to each process can greatly improve the efficiency and productivity of the support function. But it is possible to take this a step further. Many tools now have the capability to be integrated into the IT infrastructure to automate a number of processes and procedures, which can be routinely repeatable, time-consuming, and low value. There is more potential to be had from automating processes and streamlining the transition of inputs and outputs. There are also different complexity levels of process automation. Each have different implications and applications for the support team. Each organization will have different capabilities, infrastructure, and resources, which will dictate the level of automation they are able to implement. And while cognitive automation, for example, may allow for maximum efficiency of processes, it may not be the most cost-effective option for some, particularly smaller support teams. And as such, it's necessary to fully understand how automation can benefit your organization and which complexity of automation best fits your requirements, resources, and budget. As I mentioned, as well as processes, many tools and technologies now have the capability to be integrated. For example, when logging a ticket, a service desk solution integrated with the CMDB can leverage automation to autofill fields such as PC serial numbers. And similarly, an ITSM tool which is integrated with the known error database and automated can alert a service desk analyst to whether an incident is related to a known error and supply them with a workaround or prompt them to escalate it to the incident to problem management. Giving analysts the best chance to perform optimally can then reduce your average instant resolution time, which should then have a knock-on effect to improvements in other metrics like call wait times, average cost per instant, first-time fix, and so on. Integrating AI tools such as natural language processing and machine learning with chatbot technology can help it to better understand what the customer wants and potentially carry out relevant tasks faster and more efficiently than other channels may be able to. Using these capabilities to enhance your chatbot can also be implemented as a layered approach to what is essentially an excellent foundation for a virtual agent. And this is an example of iterative, gradual improvements to enhance and elevate the chatbot and its capabilities. Virtual assistants are essentially chatbots that can execute workflows. For example, where a chatbot might reach a point where they're no longer able to deal with a customer issue and will perhaps escalate the conversation to live chat or another channel, a virtual agent would be able to carry out an action, which could be anything from logging a ticket to ordering a new piece of hardware to creating a change request. Machine learning allows chatbots to iteratively learn from a data set to improve how it responds. Essentially, the system makes a guess, receives feedback, and guesses again until it gives the best answer. And this can be beneficial for the customer experience as it may lead to faster resolutions of customer issues, while also being an overall more user-friendly support channel which resembles human contact. The main purpose of natural language processing is to allow your chatbot to understand conversation in a better way. It's said that building a great chatbot is similar to teaching someone a foreign language, as it needs to learn vocabulary, understand syntax and semantics, and be able to construct answers. NLP can be beneficial because it makes interactions with the chatbot feel more like a conversation with another human. And that can be great if some customers find it less frustrating to communicate via this channel, if it feels less robotic and more personal or chatty. Sentiment analysis allows a chatbot to analyze how the customer is feeling based on how they're writing. For example, are they using short sentences? Are they using negative words or exclamation marks or similar indicators of extreme emotion? And this can be useful for the chatbot as it's able to understand how to proceed with the chat. For example, a customer who is already sad, disappointed, or frustrated will have very limited patience, whereas a happier or more neutral customer will be able to be more understanding. By recognizing the context right from the beginning, a chatbot can then select the best course of action to take a respective approach to the interaction, which may be to connect the customer to a human on the service desk. So if you combine process integration and automation with a virtual agent, you can create what is essentially a zero-touch first line, which can carry out various workflows from start to finish without the customer having to leave that one channel. And this sort of service is the definition of omni-channel support. Now, you may have heard of multi-channel as well as omni-channel, and both types are fantastic if you want to provide your customers with a choice as to how they contact the service desk or seek support, so they can use a method which suits them, and that can allow them to become more self-sufficient, such as self-help, self-service, chatbots, and virtual agents, which can then help a shift left journey. The problem with multi-channel support is that if you have different teams responsible for different channels, those support teams can become siloed. The telephony team may not be great at communicating with the email support team. So customers may get a totally different experience when they interact with each team, and that can be jarring for the customer, and it can have a detrimental effect on channel adoption. Or perhaps a chatbot may not be able to perform a task which self-service can, and therefore customers need to switch channels or give up and call the service desk. Omni-channel, on the other hand, can mean providing your customers with a seamless experience across support channels according to their preference. Omni-channel support, much like multi-channel, involves companies offering customers numerous ways to interact. The difference is that omni-channel takes a more holistic view by attempting to create a seamless customer experience across multiple channels should the customer need to move between, for example, a chatbot to self-service to the knowledge base. Understanding how these channels fit in with each other will highlight opportunities for automation and integration, which may offer the service desk the opportunity to design a more efficient and consistent service. The presence of omni-channel communication structures in the consumer space has begun to affect what customers expect from their workplace. Why, when I can use a virtual agent to discuss an issue I'm having with my insert consumer brand here account, can I not use it to request a new laptop at work? The integration between each support channel in this instance, a chatbot or virtual agent and a self-service portal or service catalog, and the integration between processes such as request fulfillment, change management, and asset and configuration management, and departments such as IT, facilities, and finance need to be seamless and work efficiently behind the scenes so that the customer can get from A to B in one interaction. Ultimately, this can enhance the customer experience, but it can also greatly improve the efficiency of the service desk and the wider organization. So I mentioned that a fully integrated virtual agent can allow service desks to create a zero-touch first line, which is something many professionals would argue is where the industry is headed. Something else we need to try and do is theorize what the next support channel will be. And this isn't an easy thing to predict. There's so many new technologies which are beginning to be used as support channels, which could become mainstream, and many tech vendors claiming their developments are going to be the next big thing. But I had a crazy idea. What if the next support channel isn't a support channel at all? And let me explain what I mean by that. I've spoken about one way which you can fully integrate and automate an intelligent bot to handle your first line incidents and requests, and potentially more. But there's also technologies available which are self-diagnostic or self-healing, and system monitoring tools which can identify and diagnose issues within an infrastructure and prompt a human, be it a customer or service desk staff, to resolve the issue with one click. And there are tools which allow IT departments an unprecedented view into their organization's infrastructure. In turn, this enables IT professionals to proactively support the business and identify anomalies and issues, potentially before they become disruptive. So it's not totally unreasonable to think that the next support channel we see within ITSM is simply, or not so simply, self-aware tech, which can monitor an entire infrastructure, identify issues before they become much disruption, and alert an appropriate professional, or even resolve the issue itself. And this would create an IT service which is self-sufficient, proactive, and reliable, and in turn can free up service desk staff time and resources while improving the customer experience. But what happens to the service desk? Some of you may argue that this would cause the service desk to become redundant, risking job losses. But SDI research shows that service desk professionals are aware of the changes that technology will bring and understand that they need to begin developing their support staff to be able to take on more proactive and complex roles and transcend the role of first-line support. So rather than replacing service desk staff, you could argue that the service desk would evolve to address other issues within the business. Having talked through this hypothesis, however, we need to exercise some realism. Our data shows that the majority of service desks still spend most of their time day-to-day firefighting due to a heavy workload. And while the technologies I've spoken about today could help reduce this, it would require a lot of time, money, and resources with many service desks, IT departments, or organizations may not have to spare. However, if service desks are to survive and stay relevant as technology continues to develop and become more cognitive and customer expectations continue to grow, it's important that organizations start taking steps to prepare for the future changes and evolutions of the service desk. So step one is simply to start where you are. It's important to look at your service from an outside perspective and consider its efficiency, as well as how well it meets business requirements, if customers have a good experience with it, and how well IT communicates with the rest of the organization and vice versa. Is there anything you're missing or any glaring changes that could be made to improve your service? Essentially, is there anything standing in the way of evolving? This could be the first thing that you need to change on your journey. Step two, establish a why. Now, this could be to transform the organization, to put it ahead of competition, or improve efficiencies and reduce waste to lower support costs. Having a reason to transform can also bring stakeholders together and focus efforts to work towards a single goal. However, if, for example, there's pressure to deliver drastic, unrealistic change, there may be issues surrounding the perception or expectations of IT, which could signify that the relationship with the wider business needs improving before transformation can begin. Step 3, define where you want to be. Thinking pragmatically but realistically and considering your findings from step 1, where could your organization be in the next 2, 5, 10, 15 years? Where do you want it to be? Obviously, the further away you think, the harder it is to plan because there's no way of knowing what the norm could be. If your organization has a strategy in place, this could be a good opportunity for IT to understand how they can help the business achieve their goals and align itself closer to the business strategy. However, if you can decide on realistic goalposts and get key stakeholder buy-in, you can begin to make the dream a reality. And furthermore, by setting out longer term goals, that can help you to work backwards to mark milestones and performance indicators. The final step, lay out a roadmap. Now, this shouldn't just be A to B. It also needs to consider the steps needed to get to each milestone. And this could be refining and reducing waste, making your service as efficient as it can be, and getting feedback from customers and key stakeholders. Adopt continual improvement methods and progress iteratively in small increments. Not only is this more manageable, but it also allows you to monitor the impact of changes better and can help you to get valuable direct feedback about what's working and what could be improved. It's also worth noting that your roadmap should be flexible. There's no use sticking to a plan or a strategy if it no longer makes sense for your organization. Reviewing and discussing it every 6 months or so with key stakeholders could show the need to shift direction, which could ultimately be more beneficial to this organization. So that was everything from me. I'm sorry for the last minute change, and I know that was a lot of information to throw at you, but I hope you found some value in that presentation and you'll go away with some actionable insights. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them, or all my contact information is on screen.
My name's Poonam and I head up service management for Centra. I'm going to talk through our journey from insourcing the service desk and what model we used and the reasons why we used it and how successful it was. Many companies I've seen do a lot around outsourcing, but I wanted to talk to you all specifically around insourcing and the benefits of it, because there isn't many case studies or as much available information around insourcing. So the reason why we were asked to insource the service desk was during a leadership conference in 2018. It was identified, although there'd been significant investment made into infrastructure, tools and equipment, the perception around IT was still quite poor. From an outsourcer perspective, the outsourcer contractually were hitting their targets, their objectives, but when we reviewed annual colleague kind of engagement scores, they were quite low, and some of it was around business understanding, experience, and people really understanding what was required. Our outsourcer was based in one region. There was cultural probably challenges, as well as we know when people working shift patterns that perhaps don't fit with their normal body clock around circadian rhythms and things like that, it does have an impact on productivity and output and the way in which they work. So we were asked to do this within a period of 6 months. So it was a very, very aggressive timeline. Scarlett, would you be able to move me to the next slide? Sorry. And what we did was set out a bit of a plan of action and had various streams. Those streams involved commercial and legal, property, people, process, and communication. So 6 months seems like a very short period of time, where a lot of outsourcers often have, 1.5 to 2 years from contract negotiations to due diligence, to recruiting, to assessing and training. So it was a very aggressive timeline. And how we did it was establishing these 5 value streams within the project plan. We formed a steering committee, and throughout the project we completed periodic and scheduled kind of reviews on the structure, had meetings with each stream to ensure there was progression towards those aggressive timelines. And many risks and issues were highlighted within those streams and tried to be managed appropriately. There was a massive emphasis on how we enhance engagement and how those project objectives come to life with our colleagues. So we had lots of kind of tailored one-on-one sessions. We had people that were involved in the project. We had recognition to those people that were supporting that, and we had specific stakeholder engagement sessions. So each group's objectives were met, and we're already bringing people on the journey. So when we did go live with the service desk, people were aware of what was happening, how it was happening, and what the benefits would mean to them. And as part of that, we had a very kind of cheesy video that we launched to all of our colleagues, saying what it means to them, what we're going to be doing, and what they can expect. If you just move to the next slide, Scarlett. Thank you. So we broke that down. So what we advised our colleagues is it's a global team, a regional presence. So we used a follow the sun model. And what that meant, we had 3 locations in 3 different regions. So when one service desk finished, another one would come on and they'd cross over. So really you'd be speaking to people from a similar region or a similar cultural background that may have understand the remits and the style, the way of working, the communication. Especially when people are frustrated, they want to be able to talk to someone easily that understands them, understands those small things in tone or changes in language easy. We had a bit more flexibility, so we could leverage our resources and our people as we needed to. So we've got a higher proven quality and customer satisfaction now that we've gone live as well, and that's something that we anticipated. Better levels of motivation on the service desk, because people were working directly for us. They are able to progress with us. They're able to have training and development with us as a company, and we're able to flex and change without having to change contracts. So we have a bit more ownership on what's needed or required from our colleagues. In terms of measurement, so the thing for us was, how were we going to measure success? What are the key factors for us to say that we've been successful? So one of the learnings was the CSAT score was significantly low. It was about 20%. So our colleague kind of engagement score satisfaction on how well tickets were resolved. There was a big backlog of 8,000 plus tickets. The process was very unsynced between the outsourcer and some of our internal colleagues, and we just didn't have end-to-end management. So these are some of the things that we changed and made sure that we put into place robust measurements around what we were going to measure, how we were going to measure it, and what was going to be successful for us, and what does success look like, and what does good look like. Another factor we did, we had hired and recruited people that had varying skills, varying backgrounds, different socioeconomic statuses, diversity in terms of we had on one of our desks we had 70% females, on another desk we had a 50-50% ratio. Overall on the desk we had a significantly higher ratio of diversity, from not just from a gender perspective, but from an age, a background, walk of life, technical knowledge, which gave for a more rounded desk and a more rounded experience. On our perspective, we've got a big initiative around diversity and inclusion in Essentra, and we believe that having a diverse team makes for a stronger team. So that was a key initiative as well. And one of the factors around that were technology. So leveraging technology, making sure that we're using translation tools, making sure that we have people that speak different languages. So I think throughout our IT function, we have over 30 languages that are spoken. Within the service desk, there are over 17 languages that are spoken. So there is the factor now that people want to ring more often because they're going to be able to communicate in their language of choice, as well as a chat feature that automatically translates to their language of their local site. If we just move on to the next slide. So this is a bit of a journey of what we did. So in 2019 at the start, we started our discovery and due diligence around commercial and legal, what we needed to do from a business perspective, setting up 3 locations from an infrastructure, from a recruitment perspective, making sure local labour laws were right. So there was lots of people that were involved, even from coming out of the historic contract, what we needed to do and the processes and steps we need to follow. And then in January, we started to actually have the launch of the streams towards the mid of January, where each of those streams were responsible for things from people, process, communication. Then we recruited in February, March time, and we started our recruitment process. We confirmed the locations where we were going to be based. We appointed a management team, so this is the service desk managers, and we started to induct and train. And then we worked similarly in that process with the analysts on the desk, inducting and training. Then in May, we ran a dual run session alongside the current outsourcer. And then we moved from end of May towards June. On the 10th of June, we went live. And within a few months from October, we saw significant improvements in what the colleagues were seeing. So by October, we had decreased the ticket count by over 5,300. Our colleague satisfaction had increased by 50%, and now we're at 80%. So it was 20, and then it got to around the 70 mark, and now we're at about 80% colleague satisfaction. So massive achievement. We reduced the resolution on tickets by 2 days, so tickets were resolved faster, and 30% more were resolved at first line. And the reason behind that is people started to have a bit more of a business understanding of what that means. People had the access to the people and the tools that they needed, and they were part of the company, so they weren't necessarily working on multiple contracts. And also from a work-life, home-life balance, people were working shift patterns within day hours and working hours, which improved productivity. So that was a bit of our journey, and on the back of that, we were successful in getting Service Improvement Project of the Year in the SDI 2020 awards. So it's been a great journey. COVID had some impact around how we work and some challenges around moving people to work from home, but everything seems to be worked out well. And now we're focusing on just consistency in our approach, reporting, collaboration, continual proactive management, and just improving our processes. So we've set the foundations now, and we're just now on a journey. So that's a little bit about what we did and how we went about doing it for insourcing. Not sure if there's any questions.
Thanks so much for that, Poonam. We don't have any questions, but if people do have any, where's the best place to reach you?
They can email me directly. So my email is poonam.chauhan@essentra.com, or they can reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Okay, fantastic. We do have one question that's just popped up. Julie wants to know what service desk system you used.
So we use Manage Engine at the moment as our ITSM tool.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your time today, Poonam.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next up we have Neville Ward from Micro Focus, who is going to be talking about how you can prepare your service desk for the next generation of users. How are you today, Neville?
I'm very well, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good, good, good.
Okay,
Right,
great.
let me just get going. And well, good afternoon now. It's 12 o'clock, everyone. I'll just introduce myself briefly. My name's Neville Ward. I work for Micro Focus as a solution consultant, and I specialize in all things ITSM. So my presentation today is really going to start thinking about transformation from a generational aspect as well. So when we embark on our transformation programs and all that good stuff, are we thinking about how we would want it ourselves? And I must profess now, I am not Generation Y, and I'll tell you the age range for Generation Y in a minute. But really thinking about our transformational journey and actually building out solutions that exceed and meet the expectations of a newer generation coming through. You know, as I say, I admit I've got a lot of grey hair, but I do live with a number of people in my house which are Generation Y and Generation Z. So thinking about how they're going to interact and what sort of service desk experience they would like when they kind of enter the workforce, or people that are already in the workforce. I'm also going to kind of ask the question, you know, is it time for a ticket list service desk? Will we ever get to a ticket list service desk? So that's what I'm going to take you through this afternoon. So, so first of all, let me just go there. Who is Generation Y? So Generation Y are people born between 1980 and 1994. And some of the characteristics of that generation are very tech savvy, have really grown up in a digital world, so they are very much digital natives, and for them it's all about being mobile and being able to interact from wherever you are, on the go, within the office, etc. So bearing these characteristics in mind, they are also open generally to lots of new ideas. There's been a lot of innovation during this period. Very much not afraid to challenge the status quo. So the way that we've done things in the past isn't, you know, is that the right way? Should we be exploring different ways to achieve that now? Very much all around collaboration, and you know, we've seen over the last decade or so, you know, collaboration tools, your Instagrams, your WhatsApp, and very much used to collaborating and collaborating digitally as well. Information is so readily available to them now that, you know, it's not like going out and buying a newspaper anymore. You know, they can just go to the smartphone or your laptop or your iPad, and that information is there for you. Not only that you need to go and get your information is being presented to you. Very much multitaskers, so you know, we'll kick off something, we'll start something and go and do something else. Again, that's really being driven by, you know, the digital revolution and being able to do that. Very much like recognition, you know, how many stars, you know, how many likes have you got to your post? So very much driven by that. So thinking about how, you know, how we can use things like maybe gamification techniques as well. And they always want more. So not willing to, you know, to settle for what they've got. As I say, challenge the status quo, come up with new ideas, and really drive, you know, improvements and how we want to and how we should interact with them. So bearing those characteristics in mind, I'm thinking about some of the service desks that we are providing today. No, I'm being very generalistic now. You know, they're not all old service desks, but you know, typically we have over the years provided multi-channel, be it by phone. Portals have been around for a long time. Apps have again been around for quite a long time, relatively speaking. Email and social media. And I'm not saying those channels will actually go away, but maybe the emphasis on some of those channels will slightly change. I mean, I have two teenage daughters in the house. I can't envisage them using the phone to contact someone in the future. I mean, we're in the same house and they would text me, so I can't, you know, imagine them using phones. So I think, you know, there will be a shift towards some of those more portal usage, more app usage, and social media. I also think historically, when we've looked to build out service desks and service management tools, the people that have done that, and you know, we understand the reasons why, have really built to support themselves. And so what do I mean by that? So IT support, you know, building and designing the maybe the portal, the way the users interact to suit what they need, the information they need. And yes, that's important, but actually trying to focus a bit more on what the customer wants. Does the customer really want to provide lots of different information? You know, what's a priority, what's a category? Shouldn't we, as you know, the IT people, know that already? So really trying to, you know, think about building from that perspective. Knowledge has been important. Knowledge has been in service management tools and service desks, you know, since the year dot. But often this can be very siloed. We may have multiple knowledge sources, and you know, again, for maybe good reasons. Often the service desks are reactive and less proactive. Again, I've seen a shift in this over the years, that people are trying to become more active with pushing information out, and it's always going to be an ongoing journey to be able to do that. The other thing that I think we have focused on a lot in the past, and again I see this changing, is, you know, the focus on KPIs and metrics, and not necessarily what I would call actionable insights. There's a lot of noise, as you know, in the industry about XLAs, experience level agreements, and I think this is all about, you know, the shift from, you know, a KPI is very useful, it will tell you something, but is that really giving you enough to improve the experience of your customers coming into your service desks? So a lot of focus on KPIs, but I think, you know, we should start shifting slightly away from that. So what may a generation Y service desk look like? You know, above all, the digital experience. I know this is quite an overused term at the moment, digital transformation, digital experience, but it's really got to be built around that as a core. So the ways that you can interact, yes, we will still need a way to interact via the phone, via email, but more and more traffic is going to be put on the app, being put on the portal. So making sure that we are designing those channels not only to be simple, but usable, but efficient, and encouraging the people to actually use those. Collaboration at the heart. So, you know, being able to collaborate with your colleagues. It's not always about collaborating with the service desk centrally, but being able to share your experiences and your knowledge locally. Now, you know, I guess pre-pandemic, we were all doing a lot of that. When we were sitting in the office, I would sit next to my colleague. If I had a particular issue, I might ask him a question. How do I do that? How do I do that? So we've always been good at collaborating, but we often haven't been that great at sharing that collaboration and making and exposing it to other people. So really having, you know, a collaboration engine at the heart of that, but using the data from that collaboration engine as well, learning as we go along. Centered around knowledge. I'll talk more about knowledge and some of these points in a couple more slides. Personalized and contextual. So what is, if I go into my app, my service desk app, I want them to know something about me. I want, you know, to be presented with some information. If there's a new, you know, if there's an outage or news that's relevant to my location or the services that that I consume, I want that presented to me. I want to know what my colleagues are experiencing. So being able to personalize that information and have it presented contextually as well is very important. And I come back to this point as well. So how are we learning from the data that we have within our systems to improve those as we go forward? So I think if we can start to address some of those, we can really start to, you know, start addressing generations Y, generation Z, etc. going forward. So just going into those in a little bit more detail, you know, first of all, the digital experience, customer centric, and drive a customer experience. So again, I mentioned earlier about, you know, we've designed things in the past to suit us. We need to design them with the customer. So, you know, making sure the customer is not just consuming your transformation project, but is involved in that. You know, how many clicks, you know, will it take, or how many, you know, scroll up and downs will it take to actually log a ticket? Do we actually need all that information, or can technology support us a lot more? And actually, all we need to provide is a screenshot of the error message that we're getting, and the technology takes over from there. Personalizing contextual, I've talked about that. Must be outcome driven. What do I mean by that? So I've seen portals, and I've seen apps which we throw lots of different functionality in there. You know, you can do this, you can do that, you can do that, and I think sometimes they can be really cluttered. So really understanding the outcomes that you want to achieve from your app, you know, from your portal. What are the key things that your customers need to do on that, and having that in mind, rather than maybe throwing a lot of data out there which will never be consumed, and maybe can actually confuse people as well. Must be smart and add value. If it's not adding value, the customers won't go there. So again, all in the design, all in the context, all in the personalization. Easy to enroll. You know, within your portal, a quick link to download it on your smartphone, etc., is really important, because you want to encourage people to actually do that. So making it easy for them to actually enroll, get on that, and start using that. And constantly evolving. If we look back at portals have been around in service management solutions for years and years and years. How much have they actually evolved? Is it still the same questions that we're asking? We're starting to add more technology into our portals, like bots, and I'll talk about that in a second. But are we really rethinking the way that we capture that information? As I said earlier, can we just ask for a screenshot? Is that all we need to actually process that? So thinking of how we evolve those, and they're going to evolve even more as we go forward. So collaborating with our social knowledge management, crowdsourcing of knowledge. As I mentioned earlier, there's we collaborate a lot. We collaborate a lot in the office. We collaborate a lot on collaboration tools like Teams, etc. How are we actually harvesting that knowledge? Yes, we have very structured knowledge management processes often, but we should really be looking at that unstructured knowledge as well. What are people asking each other? What is that telling us? If they don't know how to do something, they might be collaborating on that, asking their colleagues. It would be great if we could know that and we could address that. We could be more proactive in maybe sending communication out, creating different offerings or different knowledge articles. So, crowdsourcing of knowledge and using that peer-to-peer knowledge to really empower that, and really all about connecting those people through collaboration, but really more around how we're consuming that. So knowledge consumption, as I said earlier, knowledge has been around for a long time. We've had knowledge databases, we've had portals. For me, it's about getting them. It's easy to get knowledge in. It's relatively easy to publish knowledge, but it's all about the consumption of that. How easy do we make it for our users to find the knowledge? Do we ask them to categorize things? Are you looking for knowledge around PCs or network, etc.? Are we putting them off by asking too many questions, by filtering and categorizing? We should be really using structured and unstructured techniques to actually go search that knowledge within that database. Not necessarily rely on tagging, but rely on the technologies that are out there within the marketplace these days that could go in, find any knowledge articles that you're looking for, look for those keywords and present what is relevant and based on how other people have consumed that knowledge as well. So, looking at the structured, unstructured data, and also being assisted by bots, by chatbots, by we're in the world of Alexa and Siri now, So being able to interact with in those ways to pull back the knowledge that you need. How do you know if you're missing knowledge? Good question. You could say you're getting more calls on your service desk around that particular issue. So very much, data-driven knowledge. So using, machine learning techniques to understand all your tickets, being able to be more proactive, identify the trends, the missing gaps in knowledge. What do we actually need, and how do we want those knowledge articles to be consumed? Personalized and contextual. The rise of the AI and bots. AI and bots are great if used in the right way. Not just be presented by the bot straight away. And those bots, need to be powered by natural language understanding, and the system should be able to self-learn as well. So if I go in and search for a particular, or I go and ask a particular question, it must learn, and then I find the answer that I want. It needs to learn from that, become cleverer, so the next person coming in will make all those connections. So bots are really important. They need to understand the data that you have out there, and they need to understand me as an individual as well. So consumption of structured and unstructured data, again, that's very important for me. I look at service management tools over the years. We've been very good at capturing lots of data. Often that's in a very structured way. We might have a categorization, all sorts of different fields that we're capturing. But I think the most important information we're capturing is actually a description of the issue or the problem, the incident itself, and the resolution. So how we actually harvest and use that information is really important. Real-time insight, suggested actions. So using the bots to have that conversation, learn, but also bring you those suggested actions based on that interaction that you're having. And very much driven by machine learning. A lot of talk in the industry about machine learning, and you're seeing that coming more into the solutions. And it's not just a case of having machine learning, it's having the right machine learning to support the right outcomes and the right use cases as you go forward. So just want to really talk a little bit more about what we think of as actionable insight. So I've mentioned this a few times. So actionable insight for us is about the consumption of data, and structured and unstructured data. As I said, having being able to create a report of the number of incidents against network is great. You're relying very much on your operators to categorize that correctly, and assuming that the problem reflects the category. That's useful. That will give you some information, but may not give you the whole or full picture. So being able to harvest your unstructured data, understanding the description, looking for those keywords, looking for those, it may be a device in there, it may be a service in there that you haven't categorized or you haven't tagged against that particular service. So really looking at the consumption of that. The next element of actionable insight is real-time insight and actions. So being able to consume that data, as I say, in real time, and rather than just giving you a nice report, and I'm sure you've seen lots of examples of heat maps, and we need to look in that area, or we need to look in that area. But taking that a step further and saying, yes, there's a big area over here. We're getting a lot of particular issues around the Wi-Fi in our offices, etc. We need to, we might need to investigate that. So that's great. That's given me an insight. It's great if I can get that in real time rather than a kind of report after the event. But using the data to actually suggest things. So how could we improve? Example we always talk about is kind of change management. You know, we're getting a lot of, you know, failures around a particular service in change. Why? Getting the system to help you, give you those insights, saying actually if you focus on improving your implementation plans, then you could see an X% increase. So it's about the real-time information, but actually giving you suggested actions as well, how to improve. Very much driven by machine learning, being able to take that data, interpret that, do pattern matching, all the techniques that are involved in machine learning, very, very important. And once we started to do that, we can maybe go to the next step as well, dynamic suggested automation opportunities. So what do I mean by that? As we learn and we see the types of tickets coming in, we start to get insights from them. We understand these tickets, and often, you know, if we want to apply automation to a ticket, certain things are relatively easy to do. If you've got a request for something coming in, you can automate the fulfillment of that. But we want to take it to the next stage to say, let's understand the issues, the incidents coming in as well, identify them, and identify where we can automatically apply remediation. So teaching the system to understand these types of errors and how to remediate those. So not just about, you know, fulfilling, but really remediating based on the information that's been provided within the ticket and how we've then interpreted it and we've learned from it as we go forward. So there's, you know, when I talk about actionable insights, they're very much the things I talk about. So really just going to finish off now. You know, in summary, obviously you put your users at the heart of your solution, and actually regardless of the generation. Like I say, I've got a lot of grey hair, you know, but I still have requirements. Maybe I like to phone people and have a chat. So have them at the centre, users at the centre, but think about the next generations coming through as well. Embrace the technology that's out there. You know, I talk a lot about machine learning and AI. You know, this exists within our service management solutions today. So embrace that. How are we using that? But think about, you know, what outcomes you want to achieve. Evolve at pace. I mean, if we've learned nothing from, you know, the last number of months and the last year, is the ability we do have to evolve at pace. So, you know, we've got to a certain point, we don't stop, we continue on that journey, but we continue on that journey at pace. And I guess ticket service desk, will we ever have one? Maybe not in my lifetime, but the more that we are able to become more reactive, we understand what's going on in the environment, we're able to resolve things before they come along, the better we get at change management, i.e. we don't break things. Yeah, it's probably something we could get to, but as I say, probably not in my lifetime. So that's all I had to say today. So if anyone would like to reach out to me, that's my email address, neville.w@microfocus.com. You'd also find me on LinkedIn, Neville Ward as well. You'll find me on there. You know, would love to hear from you on your views around different generations and requirements, different generations coming forward. So that's me. So thank you for listening.
Thanks, Neville.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the intro and the opportunity to speak with everyone today. It's truly exciting to be able to have a global platform in a virtual sense, even though we can't have physical virtual events. I think there's been great benefit in having a global digital platform. Wanted to talk to a little bit to everyone about shaping our future with what we call next-gen transformation. I think it goes without saying we've had a massive period of huge change and in some aspects a lot of uncertainty over this last year, and the coronavirus pandemic is going to have some long lasting impacts across the globe. And the benefits of that, you know, I'm a true believer that with adversity comes abundance of opportunity. And with that, I think without a doubt, what this has really forced a lot of organizations to do is rethink and reshape how they view their organizations, how they are organized, and how they can be more future ready and create a transformation wave or a digital transformation wave. It has kind of been set forth, and now there's a time to respond to it and be as proactive as possible. Some speakers earlier today talked about how we've demonstrated a lot of agility and proven that we can quickly adapt, and I think that's something that certainly was also a benefit of this. So with that, in shaping our future, one of the things that I wanted to talk a little bit about today is how does that start? How does reshaping and being more future ready, how does one organization embark on that type of transformation? I think the first key point is that shaping our businesses for the future really starts with a transformation mindset. And at the core of that mindset is keeping in mind our most strategic asset, regardless of what type of organization you are, which is your employee and your people. And so treating your employee as the North Star and having that at the core of your transformation mindset is a critical success factor. And the key here is that if you're really looking at building a future-ready business from based on strong connected concepts, the key here is that we need to look at investing and building stronger connections between our customers and their experiences, talent and technology, data and decision making, and inputs and outcomes. And if we think of the employees and we think of what we've just gone through, just in these few new critical moments that have emerged over the last few months, right? We'll have a few examples we'll talk through in the context of a concept of ESM or enterprise service management, where we can really think of the employee's journey and the things that they need to go through. And the idea here is how can we exploit the power of technology, unique insights available to us, artificial intelligence, and technology to really enhance the effectiveness, efficiency, and agility of not only the organization, but each individual within the organization, which ultimately will contribute to not only high performance, but productivity and improved outcomes overall. So imagine, if you will, that you and your organization had a single consumer-grade digital experience when requesting and receiving corporate services. Imagine that you had a framework in place that focuses on employees and delivers fully connected, consistent, and high-quality services that help you to improve and drive employee satisfaction and productivity. That you had this capability to link employees and business service owners and services anywhere, anytime that employees needed it. Imagine having a framework that allows business service owners to better understand which services your employees actually use and use the most in order to drive operational excellence, while you can save time and money. And leverages a platform and a capability for workflow orchestration so that you can coexist in an architecture with key systems of record across your organization. If you think of, SAP or Oracle or Workday, and that you have a new age operating model for business services with a set of pre-built assets that help you scale across the enterprise your service delivery. This is what we mean by enterprise service management. So from our view, enterprise service management is a capability that helps you provide a consistent, streamlined experience from request to receipt of services. And this framework spans delivery, design, and management of all the different corporate services across the breadth of the enterprise, and essentially helps you create a borderless organization where people and technology can interact together for new levels of productivity and value creation. And at the heart of that really is thinking through how we can break down the different service silos and get rid of this notion where employees sometimes often have to act as service integrators, figuring out which different function they have to go through, and now have a seamless, effective, productive experience when they're accessing services across an organization. ESM in itself, I think, is a topic that has been around for a long time, but what we're talking about now is truly anchoring it in the employee in order to transform and future-proof an organization with respect to how they deliver services and keep their employees content. What does that mean for us? What does that mean if we think of it in a context of a new age of a service desk, for example? What does that mean for organizations that have different skill sets and different groups? We talk about this through what we call moments that matter, or a journey that each individual go through. So the premise of enterprise service management is that we build an experience for our different employees through a collection of what we call moments that matter. And we have a hypothesis on what these moments of matter are, and that are most common and can have a lasting impact when the single pane of glass concept is applied. It helps you connect many existing source systems and calls on the system of engagement and system of record. And there's different layers that I'll take you through. But the key here is, if we take an example across the top, which you'll see, a common occurrence is an employee might have a visitor, for example, that comes on site. And that visitor comes on site, and we have to worry about making sure that they get a badge. We might have to go physically down to the security desk to get them their badge. In this new world, we might have to also go through a series of steps of screening before they can even arrive on site to make sure that they are not exhibiting symptoms of COVID, for example. There might be consent forms. There might be PPE we have to issue to them. They might need a parking spot. They might need guest Wi-Fi. And a lot of these different moments or journey points along the way are often segregated groups or activated through different functions. But imagine if that was a journey that was connected, where you could access a single digital platform on the front end, and you can build and say, I have a visitor coming, and it proactively asks you, what are all the different pieces and parts of that journey? Will this person need Wi-Fi? Will this person need a security badge? Will this person need a parking pass? Does this person need PPE issued, etc.? And you complete that through your digital experience, and all of the different connected workflows, systems, and different corporate functions are all connected and able to align all of those different capabilities together in a seamless experience. That's what we mean by a connected enterprise service management experience. And when we think of these, there's tons of moments that matter, whether it's through onboarding or offboarding, whether it's through maybe relocation of an employee. In this new age, right, we thought employee health checks and screening, whether it's around issuing workplace cleaning, there's tons of connected moments. So the thought process here is that at the very top, you've got your moments that matter, supported by a process layer. And the key here is that we need to be able to interact with our employees where they request the services, where they're needing information, where they have their questions and issues, where we can maybe provide even proactive notifications to them and help them along the way. And this is the essence of transforming what we often think of as the heart of the organization, where we think of a service desk, into a point of service that's beyond just a desk, beyond just an IT desk, but something that is tied to the complete journeys and the different moments that matter. The next layer, if you will, in this model really thinks through a digital interaction layer. We've all seen that a lot of service management tool sets and a lot of organizations have focused on a portal consumer-like experience, but there's still a lot of organizations that might have different portals. So I, as an employee or a user, have to know that I go to my IT portal to access IT-related requests or issues or services. I might need to go to an HR portal for my HR services. But this concept here is we provide a digital interaction layer with a consumer-grade experience that ties all of these together, and the function or that silo doesn't matter anymore, and that employee doesn't serve as that the system integrator, but they serve as just someone wanting to go through that journey, and they can type their search, they can go through that portal, and regardless of where in the organization their issue, their question is from, they're able to access that. Underneath that digital interaction layer is an orchestration and automation layer. So this is where I understand how I can orchestrate the services that were enacted so that we can get all of these things fulfilled, approved, measured, etc. And this is where we see that we might have multiple tools come into play here from an orchestration perspective, and ties into a little bit of an integration layer to help me execute those corporate functions. And so here I might rely on enterprise data and different systems of record. I might have other systems of record across different functions, and they all come together to help provide provide me with a connected experience and help fulfill those different moments that matter. And then along all of these different layers of the model, we have capabilities for intelligent automation, robotics, and virtual agents, things that help automate and orchestrate that connected experience that we're trying to put together, that journey for the employee. So that's the concept of the ESM framework, if you will. And I think what's interesting is taking this framework and understanding, what does this mean for me and where do I start this journey? And the key here, again, is anchoring on the agreement that if people are our most strategic asset, how can we redefine all of our different services to be employee-centric and focusing on the journey that they're going through? How do I inventory the different skill sets of the people that provide support functions across my organizations, and rather than knowing just my individual HR or IT or finance or legal matter, do I train all of these different employees that provided support in these different realms to understand the broader connected journey and being able to address anything across that entire journey map? So it's almost bringing together what could be siloed traditional service desk functions or service delivery centers or service support functions, and anchoring them on mapping and understanding a connected journey of different moments that matter from an employee experience perspective, and reshaping your support organization as a result. It's about adding not only more levels of automation, but how we can be proactive in understanding what moments might be upcoming that need something and connected together. So the concept, and again, I know that our last speaker talked a little bit about the ticketless service desk, and I think it's a very similar construct to say, is there a future where we see an enterprise service point as opposed to just a service desk? And that service point is a combination of people, orchestration, automation, robotics, intelligent automation, virtual agents that automate and orchestrate experiences or connected journeys, as opposed to just individual services that are centered around a particular function in a connected way. I think it's about looking at how we can map these journeys, prioritize them, bring together common data models. There's a wealth of opportunity here for us to truly think of how we can reshape and retransform our organization. So with that, I think we should have a few more minutes for any questions or thoughts from our audience.
Thanks for that, Farah. We don't have any questions at the moment, but if any come in, obviously you've got your email on screen, so anyone feel free to get in touch with Farah if they have any questions. Thank you so much for your time today. there was a big fan of enterprise service management, so it was really interesting to hear your perspective on the model as a whole and how it filters through the organisation.
Hey, well, I can't believe here we are at the last one of the event. What an amazing thing to be doing, and thank you so much for having me on board, and thank you to Axelos and PeopleCert sponsoring this particular session. It's wonderful that they've done so, and following on from what a lot of people have talked about today too, the people component, it is definitely something that our organizations can never move away from. Our organizations are made up of a sea of souls, most definitely, and that's what makes everything move. And what we want to look at here today is how value, we talk a lot about value stream mapping and the journeys that people take. And one of the key elements that I've really focused on and discovered is how much empathy impacts the way or the value that people get out of the journeys that we do take during the organization. I love how Farah was talking about, you know, in terms of being future ready, needing that transformation mindset is very much about thinking closely about the impacts as people that we have in those interactions, and then how we're supported by the processes and the technology to do that. In regards to my own journey, I thought, you know, the easiest way to understand a bit about me and my background is definitely look at LinkedIn. I don't regard myself as particularly clever, but definitely extremely curious. It's been a very big part of my career and my love of technology and what I've done in my service and support career. It's quite long, everything from Army communications to receptionist, call center and support desk analyst, and eventually moving into national support center management and so on. And now as a consultant, coach and trainer, I Zoom along with everyone else. I work off 4 core business principles. How do we connect our people? And in doing so, then how that we're able to share our knowledge and discover the possibilities that are open to us. And in doing that, we can then make decisions about how we can realize our potential. So when I look back over my career and the teams that I've worked with, one thing really, really stands out, and that's how we are now rediscovering our humanity, where technology is really the catalyst and drives a lot of our change. With my background, including HR and organizational change and complementary health, I've now become even more fascinated with the technology around the human brain. It led me into areas like machine humanity, being the editorial director for the Era of Humanizing IT docuseries, and also writing about ethics in artificial intelligence and researching and focusing on emotional AI. So one of the key things that when we think about what does empathy do for us and what does it mean in terms of our organizations and our teams, for a very long time, the essence of what makes us human, the empathy, the values, our emotions, have been called soft skills and really relegated to the sidelines. Yet these are our capacity to drive things, our culture, our engagement, leadership, innovation, collaboration, and the type and style and focus on our services that we want to provide. They are not soft skills. They are definitely a cornerstone to being resilient and to thrive and move very quickly in the agile environment that our organizations are looking for. And that's the reason for understanding what is this outcome economy. It is the experience of both the employees and of the person that's experiencing the product or service. And we find that things like empathy will only gain a depth of commitment and a focus on how we'll improve if we understand the depth of the impact it actually has on what we do. And since it is a cornerstone, let's have a look at some of the statistics. You can look at Business Solver. There's a recent State of Workplace Empathy survey. It was done across a couple of thousand employees across 6 different industry sectors. And it's all around information from CEOs and HR professionals and that type of thing. Now, a lot of the C-level suite and across roles and job titles are all calling for change. Leaders often underestimate or risk missing out on what empathy's impact is on their organisation, especially in times to succeed or even recover from the situations that are facing them. Supporting employee mental health is always really important as well. No one has really cracked the code on destigmatizing mental health. And for our frontline people, being on the service desk can be quite a traumatic experience. We are dealing with people that are constantly in almost a negative state because things are going wrong. They need their comms fixed as quickly as possible. They're trying to be productive and keep their own organisation going and support their customers in turn. So we find ourselves in quite a maelstrom of experience that's going on. And you can see from the statistics that we still have a gap somewhat from the C-level to what employees actually are experiencing in terms of what is needed. So even though we have that 93% of CEOs are saying that yes, we need to address more of the overall well-being and needs of our employees, and there's an acknowledgement that workplace empathy needs to evolve, there's still definitely a gap of understanding how it links to the productivity in what we're doing. Even DevOps Institute, in their recent upskilling report, you can see in the top 10 human skills that empathy is in there. It hasn't taken that much place before, but it is gaining in significance in terms of what it means to us and how it impacts a lot of the other skills that you see here on the screen. It impacts how well we can collaborate and cooperate. It's part of our interpersonal skills, all that stuff that goes between people. Empathy is also part of creative problem solving, being able to share and transfer our knowledge, being adaptable and flexible. Empathy is part of our value commitment to our customers and to the organisation. Empathy is involved in creativity and also in the way we include others within our relationships and in what we do, and certainly as part of our leadership. So even though empathy is listed separately in this list, it's quite interesting to understand that it's also a very important part of the other elements as well. Now, this is the way we, I guess, think about what's going on in our organisation and how we would like to be. You know, we want to have a really good culture. We want a culture that is full of trust, one that has good collaboration, and we have those fast feedback loops. But when I see a model like this and it looks so simple, there's so much underneath it. I call this often wishful thinking, when really the reality of the experience is this: that never in the history of calm down has anyone calmed down by being told to calm down. The reality that when we go into work, that we start off in a high energy level, and during the day we will go in and out of our energy levels and positive and negative feelings. This could be a typical day for any one of us as we move through. And this is what we need to recognize, that as our emotions move and flow, so must our understanding and use of empathy. I think the point is quite clear here in looking at the necessity that we need to feel that we've been seen, heard, understood, and accepted. We need to allow ourselves to feel vulnerable, be mindful and understanding of each other's commonalities, and that will give us that safe workspace that we're really looking for. So let's have a look at what empathy truly is about. Empathy comes from a German word, actually, Einfühlung, meaning feeling in, and that was coined back in 1858 by German philosopher Rudolf Lotz. But it goes earlier than that. It goes from the Greek empathia, meaning passion or state of emotion, but it also then assimilated from the forms of on, meaning in, and pathos, meaning feely. So empath, in, feeling. That's what empathy is truly about. And there are different types of empathy. Empathy is a choice. It means I need to connect to something in myself that knows that same feeling that you're having, even if it comes from a different experience. A lot of people don't realize there are different types of empathy. So obviously, cognitive empathy is something that good salespeople are great at. They've got a thought, they've got the understanding and the intellect to figure out what it means for the other person to be going through that experience. So it's a perspective-taking experience. The emotional side, this is one where we also understand that personal distress. We might often feel it as a physical sensation. We're really mirroring what's happening, and we need to be careful at this particular point that what they're actually feeling doesn't become contagious. We can fall too deeply into that emotional style of empathy. But what we're really looking to be is compassionate. In exercising compassionate empathy, this is where we're looking for that right balance between logic and emotion. We can feel someone else's pain, but almost as if it's happening to us. But it's also about being able to express the appropriate amount of sympathy there as well. It's at the same time we can remain in control of our own emotions and apply reason to the situation. This is where skills like emotional intelligence and all the different facets of communication, such as active listening, are really critical to practice and work with in being able to practice good use of empathy. It means we can make better decisions and provide the appropriate support to the person having that experience. And just so you understand the difference between, there's pity, sympathy, empathy, and compassion, it's really about our level of engagement in that relationship and in the context that we're experiencing with that person. Now, there's been a lot of work around what we call flow science. Now, in flow science, and you can look at the Flow Genome Project to look more deeply at it, but it's really about understanding where we focus our energy, because energy flows where our attention goes. And it's about fully immersing ourselves in experiencing the feeling of the situation that we're in the activity that we're involved in. So in supporting our people from service desk, we are completely engaged in helping them get back to doing what it is that they do best. We are completely focused in the involvement and getting enjoyment from the fact that we are helping them and from the fact that we are increasing the organization's capability to be more fully productive. It's about getting into the zone, and you will have all felt this going through a shift. There are some shifts we're on that service desk and it feels like call after call after call. It seems getting difficult to get through the day. And there are other shifts where it seems to fly by and we just feel like no matter how difficult things were, we were just in the zone. And if you look at the latest report from Happy Signals, you'll look at some of the experience metrics for IT, that balance between our happiness and our productivity levels and the impact that that has. And part of that impact is actually about how those neurochemicals flow through our brain as we experience the various activities. And where we really want to get to is dissolving that stress and pain. We want to boost our cognitive level. We want to solve problems in creative ways. And at the end of it, we want to have engendered that feeling of trust with our customer. We want to have that overall feeling that we've achieved, that afterglow effect. So let's have a little look, I guess, at a possible or a potential style of conversation, just thinking of it from a principles and values based. Now, for those of you who have done your ITIL 4, you will recognize these as the guiding principles. And this is about also having a look at how that conversation might occur between you on a service desk. So for example, I'm working on something like I want to optimize and automate. Why can't this be more simple? Why can't I just make this happen easy? And so here I am as a customer just saying, oh, why can't I just press a button and it just magically happens? But as the service desk person, then I want to focus on the value that they're going to get from that. How can I make that happen for them? What is it going to be that makes life easier so that they can have a better day and feel happier about what they're experiencing? But it also comes from the other side. I might be thinking as a service desk person, well, how about we automate this particular function for you? And it could be as simple as having a small macro written in their Microsoft program, or it could be something larger that might be part of a project that we can make them aware of. But in being able to show them how or take that next step in optimizing and automating, they then say, well, hey, yeah, I can focus on the value of how that will make my work better. And the conversation actually continues. You can both be talking about different things, progressing iteratively with feedback. We can be thinking about how, well, what are the little steps? Sometimes it's too overwhelming. So when we think about progressing iteratively and providing that support for them on the desk, it's sometimes about the smaller steps and not making it so overwhelming for them. And that then can make them feel, wow, you're actually working with me on this, and I can see all the different steps that might be taken. So we have more collaboration and visibility of what's going on. And that in turn, when we think about that, we need to actually start where we are. We need to say, well, okay, this is where we're at right now. Sometimes we can get lost in the depths of what's going on, and we want to make sure that we can help them take those simple steps. And the conversation continues. Okay, I will make this really simple for you. These are the key steps. And then you can tell me exactly where you are in this, and we can work from there. It could be as simple as saying, well, what is the practice? I'm not sure how to do this. So maybe we have to give them advice and guidance in understanding, do they need training on this? Is it something that will be quick and easy, or do they have to go more in depth in the learning and the knowledge? What is that knowledge we can share with them in order to make it take that next step for them? And it's important too that in thinking and working holistically on both sides, that we don't lose sight of the reason that we're there in the first place, both for what the support person is doing and both what we're there to do for the customer. That this is about achieving a business objective or a business outcome. What is the experience at the end of this that's going to make a difference? Now, one of the tools that we can then use in understanding these conversations or working better with them, and these are just a few small examples, very simply provided, but we can use things like an empathy map canvas. The better you get at using something like an empathy map will make it much clearer to you in how you can improve your communication with your customers, improve your communication between your colleagues and other areas of the organization that you work with, the other teams. We can only enable change if our approach firstly allows us to have insight take place. We're in a very busy, complex, stressful world, and empathy really is the glue that holds our relationship together. So in practicing empathy, the key is really nurturing your curiosity. It means asking questions and engaging deeply in your communication skills, as I mentioned before, especially active listening. So one way of working is not going to cut it. We're not going to create a culture of empathy and face the challenges and internal barriers until we work more deeply in this state. So we don't want a culture where everything is just silver lining and positive. We want to make sure that we're tapping into the emotional truth of what's happening and discover what are the strategies we can have for emotional agility. Now, emotional agility is that our ability to have that full range of emotions and experiences, including the more difficult ones, and choosing to act in ways that are really concordant with our values. We don't want to be walking on eggshells with people, but we also want to make sure that there are no parts of the relationship that are a no-go discussion area. So if you were to, just as an example, take our guiding principles in ITIL 4, you can see that they actually nicely fit in the discussions about, well, who are we empathizing with and what do they need to do? This is where we really focus on the value of what is needed in the outcome. This is where we can, it's shades of, well, I want to do things very quickly, optimize and automate, but also understand where I'm at so we know where to move from. It's also too, what do they see? We want to think about, well, start where you are. What is it that I can see around me? What is it that I think that needs doing? What do I have available to me? When I think about what do they say, it's exactly that. What's the feedback I'm getting from them? How do I fold that into what I do and how I do it for them? Have we built our relationship? What do they actually do? What's their behavior that we can observe? What can we imagine that they're doing? So how can we promote that visibility in the relationship and the communication so that we can get collaboration moving and maintain our view of why we are here? What is it that's going to help us see the bird's eye view in how we think and work? And that is part of that collaboration and the approach we'll take to that. And what do they hear? Keeping it simple and practical makes it easier for them to understand what it is that they can get the value from and move into then. You can see that there's no one principle that takes precedence over another. All of them work and interact together. This is only one example of how you might see the guiding principles working with the empathy map. And in fact, focus on value might be down to what do they do. It could be focusing on value might work with what do they actually hear from you? Do they think they're going to get value out of this interaction and this experience journey that they're on with you? So that's just one example of what you can do and use in regards to your empathy. Understanding that from the high velocity IT, there are these key behavior values. If we're going to co-create value, it is about our service experience. It is about the experience they have with the service and the experience that we have in our relationship with that person. So we often look at the 5 key behavior patterns here to get us an understanding about how we're helping them get their job done. Is there trust? Do they feel that we can be trusted? Are we raising that bar on the experience and the quality of service they're receiving? Do we understand that this relationship and the conversation is going to change very quickly, so we need to accept uncertainty and ambiguity? And are we committed to continually learning from that experience? Are we doing the right thing? And as I mentioned before, this is where emotional intelligence competencies are very important, but understanding emotional agility, which is given to then our ability to adapt. So tap into what are the dynamics going on. It is a complex system. We're all people. Make sure that we focus around the empathy, customer-centric mindset at our core. That look at the direction that we're taking because that drives the outcome. Make sure that we're headed in the right place. Be mindful of the fact that this is still a very human experience that we are having with the technology and products and services, but it's the very much the human experience we have as people with each other. Be accountable for the right things, the efforts we take, the failures that we may have, the stepping stones in the journey that we're on. And don't be afraid of the collisions. This is where the chaos can throw up some really interesting facets and explore the stuff that's going on with people and discovering other skills and solutions and things that our paths might cross, the nexus we have. What are the paths that cross with the other teams within the organisation that we can then start our other relationships on? So I will leave you with this thought. Empathic collaboration creates the conversations. That's going to create that deeper and better communicating, and in so doing we have a wider transparency and, you know, that deeper focus of trust that we're all looking for. So don't keep everything hidden away. Don't have those things wrapped up about what you wanted to say and never did. Actually be the other way. Create the nexus, create the communication and relationship lines as you work through them, and be able to deepen that trust and, I guess, the afterglow and enjoyment of what we do and why we do it. You can find out more about IDLE 4 through these links. You can have a look at those later if you haven't been down that track already. I do strongly recommend. There's so many good things within it. And I love working with the guiding principles in a big way. There's my details if you need it. I'm very much about wanting to help humans flourish and have exceptional experiences. So we can share questions right now, or later on you can contact me in regards to that. You'll find me across most of those social channels.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.